Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Use code DNVR to sign up for a new account to get amazing odds boosts every single week. Pick of the week for you. I'm never doing anything but betting the under with the Broncos ever again. Ever again. Always taking the under. I lost my boosted bet of one touchdown getting scored in that game.
I saw that. I did have to laugh a little bit because that seems improbable for an NFL football game.
For no touchdowns to get scored. So instead, I'm betting the under from now on. That's my pick of the week. Go over to DraftKings. You can get yourself a super awesome boost bet on any NFL team when you sign up for a new account with the DNVR code. You bet $5, you get $200 in free bets. So a ton of money to play around with. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only. Other terms, restrictions, and conditions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. All right, so if you haven't checked it out, today we posted the last of our division previews, one for each division, so 4 videos. Go watch those if you want to see our full cavalcade of rankings and where we think everyone's going to end up in each division. But today we're going to be talking about the top ends of those divisions, the teams we think are genuine Stanley Cup contenders. Let's start with the East.
Do we want to start with the MacKenzie Weeger extension?
Yeah,
today?
sure. We can start with the news. That's fine. Weeger signed 8 years at $6.25, I believe it was. Great for Calgary. Now has turned this offseason into from a huge question mark to complete stability even in their lineup. So honestly, it plays in nicely because I think we probably all agree that Calgary's probably a cup contender from the West.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Why not?
It'll be interesting. AJ, I know you've talked about Weeger as kind of a rising star a lot, but where do you actually see his ceiling?
I think it's where he is.
He's already there.
Yeah. I think he's a top pairing defender that excels in the transition game and can give you 40 to 50 points offensively. I'd be curious if he gets a more aggressive offensive role in Calgary. That might boost that production a little bit, give him another couple of points there. But he's really been one of the more better kept secrets around the league the last couple of years. And then with the rise of the Panthers, there was a lot more, especially with Ekblad injury issues. There was a lot more of a spotlight put on him, and didn't have a great postseason. But as I mentioned on Twitter yesterday, the conversation surrounding MacKenzie Weeger is almost identical to the conversation surrounding Devon Taves when they got him, when the Avs got him. So all you have to do is just expect him to make a casual jump into the top 10 defensemen in the NHL.
Become a Norris candidate real quick.
And it's all good. Yeah. No, I think he's a top pairing guy, and I think he's going to help the Flames a lot. And I do think he is one of the 15-ish best defensemen in the league right now.
Fair enough.
I like the AAV, 6.25. For everything AJ was just saying, 6.25 feels like a good price.
It felt lower than I expected.
For an 8-year deal, that feels real low.
Well, but
yeah.
And so the 8 years is where I was going. I don't have a problem with the 8 years. I think Weeger's very good, whatever. But it is just – it's odd to me the long-term commitments we've seen so many teams make this summer in particular.
Yeah. Especially how many involve guys going into their 30s.
Right. So Calgary alone, 8 years for Huberdeau, 8 years for Weeger, 7 years for Kadri. It's just odd.
Well, then that's the weird part to me. It's not just teams are giving 8-year deals. Teams are giving out multiple 8-year deals.
Right,
the Avs did it too with Nichushkin and McKinnon, and it's like you're locking yourself in forever to these lineups.
Well, so again, so let's talk about just pausing on Calgary. You asked a question: are they Stanley Cup contenders? Sure, and part of that is because I don't think the West is quite as strong. I think there could be some growing pains for Calgary, especially the start of the year. That's a lot of changeover. But again, just to your point, on the off chance it doesn't work, these guys just don't gel.
Sure.
They don't get to they they're past their primes. You don't get the same production out of Kadri that he gave last year in Colorado. Huberdeau, again, I'm obviously speaking hypothetically, but let's say he doesn't get back to that ridiculous pace he was on last year. It's a long time.
Yep.
It's a long time for guys that have never played a game for you.
Yeah, that's the thing that kind of blows me away is that 3 massive commitments, the guys sight unseen.
Right. Like the Avs, you mentioned McKinnon, you mentioned Chushkin. McKinnon, obviously,
these are your guys in your program where you're like,
you know what you're getting out of them.
We're comfortable with this guy.
For sure.
Franchise cornerstone. The Avs kind of revitalized Nichushkin's, fully revitalized his NHL career. He's been in the organization now for multiple years under this coaching regime, under this management team. Mm-hmm. They're comfortable with these guys. Mikko Rantanen, or I guess not Mikko, Gabe. Same thing. They know these guys. It's just odd for me to see Calgary not only give out an 8-year deal, but then double down and then triple down on the super long term. I think sight unseen is a great way of putting it, AJ.
Year 5 of all those deals might be a real big problem.
Right. Year 3, year 4 of all those deals, you might be like, oh, how do we do this? How do we get out of this? So
I mean, imagine Huberdeau is your classic offensive, not very physical guy. Where if that game drops,
right. Can fall off quick.
Not much value elsewhere, especially with he already doesn't provide a whole lot defensively. Mm-hmm. And then with Kadri, he's already 32 when that thing gets going.
Yep.
His drop could honestly happen immediately.
Well,
I mean, so in comparison to last year, now going in and comparing it to the rest of his career, you fully expect him to continue to be a good player.
Right.
But, woo.
Well, but I'm glad you bring up the rest of his career because when the Avs acquired him 2 years ago, 3 years ago, crazy. I remember being on a show and talking about for what the Avs gave up, for what they're putting on him, you need Nazem Kadri to be 30-goal Nazem Kadri and not what he was those last couple of years in Toronto. And again, to me, it's kind of the same thing with Calgary. You really need these guys to be the best version of themselves. Otherwise, those contracts, to your point, AJ, immediately start looking not bad, but just...
Well, they paid for the best versions.
Yeah,
you look at the price tags of each of those guys, and that's where Weeger at $6 million is the one where you're like, you can live with that.
Right. Yeah.
But the 8 years is the thing on Weeger where you're like, ooh, let's see.
And look, I think that's the one thing you can fall back on if you're Calgary. I think you're pretty darn comfortable. They have the second best defense in the West.
Yeah.
A lot of people think it's first.
I don't.
I don't either, but you can understand where they're coming from if they aren't big believers in Josh Manson or Eric Johnson.
In the Stanley Cup champions, yeah.
I'm also a big believer that they don't have a Cale Makar. So
they definitely, and I think that's the conversation is that the Avs have Cale Makar.
Yeah.
The Flames don't, but the Flames' depth is reliable.
Deeper, yeah.
It's more reliable.
Yeah, I'm sure.
At this point in their careers than Josh Manson, Eric Johnson.
Fair enough.
Is it though?
Yeah.
Is it though?
Yeah, I think so.
Hold on.
With Weeger, I would say yes.
Yeah, I mean, Rasmus Anderson, Noah Hannafin, MacKenzie Weeger, Chris Tanev's is back there. Chris Tanev's been the little tank that could his entire career.
Yep.
That guy is. I don't know that guy's going to be able to move when his career is over. He's taken such a beating in the NHL.
It's fine. But I look at Zadorov and again, just some of those guys at the bottom.
Zadorov's like their sixth, though.
Yeah.
Well, I know, but again, that's what.
Would you rather have Nikita Zadorov or Josh Manson? Because I think I would probably rather have Zadorov.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I remember there being a lot of mistakes.
Moving forward,
sure, he's younger.
Is he? I think you replace EJ with Zadorov.
Right. Really, and again, that to me is if we're talking about the depth, he's their sixth guy, but.
Well, and part of this conversation is I think a lot of people not deep in the know in Colorado are sleeping on Bowen Byram.
Right.
It's true.
Well, and then Girard had a bad year last year, and I think people have really adjusted the way they look at Sam Girard, and that's a very good defenseman. Regardless of how you feel about Sam Girard, that's a very good defenseman. That's a bona fide top 4 on any team in the league, and half of them probably a top pairing guy.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of teams that you could make an argument that Sam Girard would be one of their 2 best defensemen.
Right. Yeah, and again, that's not me saying he's a hard top pairing guy, but point being, like, there's a lot of teams where he's a quality enough player that.
Well, and like we talk about preseason doesn't matter and all, but boy, Sam Girard did look.
He looked good.
He looked like the Sam Girard that we were really that we've known for such a long time.
Yep.
And not the Sam Girard that we saw last year, where it felt like he just really struggled out of the gate and never really found that footing.
Yep.
And he's already off to a better start this year. So and we've seen so much good out of Girard that there's really not like this is not a thing that I'm significantly more concerned about the Josh Manson, Eric Johnson, especially given how badly injuries have plagued them the last couple of years. Like, both of those guys, I'm just like, just stay healthy. Just stay healthy.
Manson's such an interesting one for me because he fit so well last year, and it seemed like as the playoffs were ramping up, he was really starting to get comfortable.
Yeah. Yep.
And that is what I've noticed out of him out of the preseason. He hasn't been, fantastic or whatever.
He's not afraid to send it.
Right. He looks like he's more comfortable in the system.
Yeah.
He was one of the ones that commented last year on how different it was in Colorado versus what he played in Anaheim. He now had obviously the playoff run with the Avs, now an off season and full training camp. He looks more comfortable. So he is someone that I'm really anxious to watch because I think he has the potential to go from being someone that you're concerned about to someone that is a real
if he's postseason
pillar
version of Josh Manson, then
or at least in that realm.
I couldn't stop fawning over Josh Manson in the playoffs, but I'm also, when you start talking about previews and you get into a season and all that, like, there's way more to consider than just hey, there was a playoff run where everything went, things were very pro Colorado in that playoff run. And
what was exciting, though, was that he seemed like he found a really nice balance between being who Josh Manson has always been, heavy, defensive, can kind of shut guys down, PK. But he also, like you said, he found that kind of offensive touch. And he was like, oh, wait, I can jump into the play.
Yeah.
I can shoot.
This is allowed?
Yeah. And he seemed like he found a really nice, like, kind of symbiotic mix for him. Yeah. And you hope that he finds that again. Yeah. I'm with you. You can't bank on you're going to get 9 months of the level that he was at. But if he can be in that realm and just use some of those tools, I think you really like Josh Manson in that bottom of your lineup.
Well, and that's the thing is that, like, they are going to be the guys that, Josh Manson and Eric Johnson, they're going to be here 16, 17, 18 minutes a night, depending on the game. But it's just, So, and I think that's where, when you're comparing it, to bring this back to Calgary, that's when you're comparing it. I think you're just comfortable, like you're fine with just their floor, their floors and their ceilings.
It's really right. It's a relatively high floor for sure.
Yeah, it's where you're just like, dude, as a third pairing, like, how many teams would
this guy be in the top 4?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Even a guy like Nikita Zadorov, who's frustrating and mistake prone and all that. But
right.
And like, you got a top prospect in Juuso Välimäki who just can't get a job on that defense.
Can't even make the roster.
Just can't even.
Well, when you got Nick Milosh in front of you,
Okay, so pretty clearly, we all have Avs as a cup contender. We all have Calgary as one. Are they 1 and 2 on all of your guys' boards?
League wide?
No, West only. West only.
Assuming health, yes.
Yeah.
I think those. I mean, and it's funny because in our Pacific Division preview, I picked Edmonton to win it, but that's entirely because I just think that Calgary is going to suffer injuries that they didn't last year.
Well, in regular season, where you finish the regular season is also different from who you think can truly.
Tampa finished 3rd in their division last year.
Yeah, well, and I don't think they won the division either one of the years that they won the Stanley Cup, where it was like, hey, you have to go on the road in the first round. Okay. That's just, that, of course, Tampa is like a freak of nature, right? Like,
true.
They're a great example of, like, them, Pittsburgh, or it's like, it has to be something systematically. The Avs are getting into that realm, too, where it's like, how is it that every guy that comes here excels? How do you keep finding these guys? Even Evan Rodriguez in Pittsburgh, like, he had a down part of the back half of the year, but like,
But I mean, come on.
season.
right. It's like,
You're talking about a guy that was not even in NHL. Like, he was not playing every single day, no bones about it, in Buffalo.
Right.
And he shows up in Pittsburgh, and it's just like, oh, it's a 40-point year.
Yeah.
What can I do?
And so, like, there are a couple of these teams where it's like, they just have something, like there's something in the water where they just find a way to get back there. Yeah, Tampa, like I said, Pittsburgh, Colorado's starting to get into that realm with some of the guys they've turned out.
And we'll get into the East a little bit. I am curious who you guys have third on your list in the West, though. I'm assuming it's Edmonton for AJ. Jesse, I know in our Pacific preview you won't get fooled again by them.
Won't get fooled again. And I just, look, I think Jack Campbell's a great dude. I was maybe the biggest believer in Jack Campbell after that WJC's. 10 years ago now at this point? 11 years
ago? Dallas is probably the biggest believer, given that 11th overall pick they used on him.
You are correct. But look, I saw the way it went down last year in Toronto. It started rolling downhill a little bit, and he's completely buckled. I think there's an equal amount of pressure in Edmonton to perform, especially because they went to the conference final last year. I don't think that's going to go. I don't think it's going to go well in net. I still don't think they have – their defense is better than people give it credit for. I like Evan Bouchard. I think Darnell Nurse is fine. I think he's wildly overrated. And
he's wildly overpaid.
Wildly overpaid.
I don't know about overrated. I don't see a lot of Darnell Nurse's number one stuff out there.
Oh, so you didn't see all the Team Canada Olympic mock-ups where several outlets had him as a top pairing defenseman on Team Canada?
I mean, if you don't have Devon Taves and Cale Makar as your top pairing for Team Canada, you're bad at your job.
Right. But either way, I don't.
Or
think,
you work in Edmonton media.
I don't think they have the defense or the team defense to insulate a questionable goaltender as we saw last year, and I think they'll outscore their problems in the regular season. And then once they get up against a legitimate contender again near the end of the year in the playoffs, they'll get swept. You know what I mean? Like
the thing that makes them scary though is that you cannot make mistakes against them because their offense. I think their forward core is even better.
Their top six will be to a pulp.
It is because it's everybody's like, oh, it's just McDavid and it's just Draisaitl, and it's like it's really not. Like Evander Kane and Zach Hyman and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins are all really, really good. Like those guys. That's a really good top six. And then you have two guys who just are like, oh, great. We're, point per game wise, we're just two of the highest scorers of the last 30 years. No big deal, And they just vibe off each other. And now they're on different lines and they do different things. Draisaitl's such a good goal scorer, and you don't think of like McDavid. You're just like, oh, he just does everything well, and then 40 goal season just falls out of his ass, and you're like, but like they are like, you look at their series against the Avs last year, like we talk about like they shut them down or they did this or they did that, and like they had like 9 points in that series.
So I actually was just having this conversation this morning though, but like my issue with them still, and this goes back to what you're saying. Cool, they had 9 points. You won 0 fucking games.
Yeah, but you're talking about team accomplishments versus.
I know, but if we're saying, they have this great offense that can push them and they're going to be a problem. They won 0 games once they got up against an actual contender, even with all that production. You got to keep the puck out of your own net. They lost an 8-6 game in the Western Conference Final. And that's their problem. Goal scoring isn't their problem.
And this is where the Jack Campbell question comes up, because did they get better defensively? Not really.
Like you really don't know the whole back half of that team. You're just like,
right, and that's their problem again. And this is where the McDavid and Draisaitl thing. I'm with you. They have a better forward core than people will acknowledge. The production percentage share is still a little still skewed towards those two guys. They are in on a lot of the production there. But sure, I'm with you. They have a good forward core. That has never been their issue. Go back 10 years. Their forward core has never been the issue. They cannot keep the puck out of their own net, and they continue to waste the prime of their high-end forwards because they just think we can outscore our problems every year, all the time, every game, and it's worked out exactly 0 times.
Yeah, it's hard to do in the postseason.
Yep.
It
really is. Right.
But they
when they even get there.
They like what makes them such a problem though every night is that you make one mistake and McDavid is jamming a puck down your throat. You know, you end up with you accidentally flip a puck out of play, and great, here's a 30% power play going on the man advantage. You know,
there are games where McDavid can give you between 3 and 5 points, and if on that night Jack Campbell is an actual Swiss cheese, they're probably gonna win.
And again, and this
it's like, for me, I'm like, if you swapped Pavel Francouz and Mike Smith in the Western Conference Final last year, does the outcome change?
I think they win a game.
I don't think they have sweep.
Yeah, I don't think they sweep. Again, I don't think the overall outcome of the series changes, but I think they at least get a game.
They might. Yeah, I don't know where they end up with it. I think the Avs still win because I think the Avs were healthier and they were just better. But like, we have to remember, like, that was a good series. It was an entertaining series with we had a 1-goal game in game 1.
Yeah, with an empty netter.
Which ended up a little chaotic, but it was wild. And and then game 4, I mean, that's an overtime game. And like that they were close enough in that series that it's like, it was interesting. But I just like them because they can just attack you in ways that very, very, very few teams can just be like, oh, we'll just send out the top guys, and those top guys are just better than everybody else's top guys.
Yeah,
and Colorado is one of the teams that can handle that.
Yep.
And then you look at, okay, who else is on that list? Like Tampa Bay's top guys, another team that just can handle that. Where, okay, we're going to put our best on best and just let them ride.
Yep.
But how many other teams are there?
Well,
and Calgary best on best. Do you feel as comfortable?
Well, so here's
Ask again in a month.
Yeah, so maybe not
sight unseen, right?
Ask again in 7 years. My other issue with them is because I agree with you. They are a team that capitalizes on your mistakes, and I thought the Avs were maybe one of the best teams at that last year as well. You make game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final. Victor Hedman makes like one errant pass too many. It's in the back of your net. The Avs are really good at that too, where Edmonton, I think, has gotten themselves in trouble and where they will still struggle this year. You are right. They're very opportunistic. It's when you get against those teams who can be equally or close to as opportunistic and make fewer mistakes. The Oilers still make, as of last year, too many mistakes away from that top 6, where as deadly as they are capitalizing on those mistakes, they are equally as bad at preventing mistakes from ending up in the back of their net. And that is the problem, that until they solve that, they will be a really exciting, fun, regular season team that won't accomplish much because you just can't outscore your problems in the postseason.
Yep.
I want to see what happens with the full year of Jay Woodcroft. I do think that he really helped their identity a lot. He really helped them kind of settle into a comfort zone as a team, and I think that was something that they had really been seeking for a long time, because they were playing under a head coach that just wanted them to be something that they weren't. And I think Woodcroft was like, look, we've got some we need to just kind of lean into a little bit of this and just say we are comically explosive on offense. Let's go do that, and then we'll try to mitigate it on the other end. And it's hard to do. It's hard to do.
I'm going to sound like I'm just being a contrarian here, and I promise I'm not, because I'm with you. I am curious to see what he does for a full season.
Yeah.
Being up close with him last year in that series, I just
lost his composure.
Yeah, those pressers were not a good look.
He just felt a little bit like a pretender in some of those situations where it's like, buddy, you seem a little over your head here, and that's why I'm really interested. I'm with you. I'm interested to see, because
it's a totally fair criticism.
He lost me a bit in that series.
In a 6-month span, he went from coaching in the AHL to coaching in the Western Conference Final.
For sure.
Like, that dude was on. That dude was a deer in the headlights, where he was like, because we all know, like, postseason, we talk about why postseason experience matters, because you do get into those big situations. You do, and look, when the game 7 of the first round against LA, you're kind of like, if we lose, it's a disappointment. If we win, cool, we get the Battle of Alberta. And then the Battle of Alberta, just kind of everything just sort of went their way.
Right. It all fell into place.
Collapsed a little bit.
And Jacob Markstrom plays horribly.
Yeah,
horribly in that series.
Yeah, like maybe the worst goaltending performance of a series last playoffs.
Legitimately, like it was horrible, man. And like Jacob Markstrom is a much better goaltender than that.
Yep.
And they just it's sort of like they didn't really face that kind of adversity.
Yep.
The 7-game series against LA was tough, but it was different
because they were supposed to win that one. That shouldn't have gone. 7.
Well, and then when they won it, it was like,
yep.
Okay. And then Battle of Alberta went way too easily, and they they go up against Colorado, and the Avs just were like, everything that you do, we do better.
Right.
And I think that there was just a lack of answers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they knew that it was a very thin line between we're about to get dog walked and being competitive. Mm-hmm. And so I think that coaching staff was really on edge when little things went against them. The Makar with at the end of the first period with the tag up rule.
I don't even think it made it that far.
No,
I think they watched Darnell Nurse turn over a puck for the first goal and knew he was injured and just went, "Oh no!"
And they knew because Draisaitl and Nurse were both had like serious injuries that they were dealing with, and they knew, and they just didn't have Colorado's depth.
Yep,
they just could not. Colorado survived without Sam Girard disappeared off the roster. Jack Johnson came in, and everybody was like, yeah, okay, that happened.
Right.
But this was like Darnell Nurse. This is a guy that's irreplaceable for them. And Leon Draisaitl was playing severely hampered.
Yeah,
looked like he was dying after every shift. Right. We spent a ton of time on the Oilers. I know,
to me, these are the 3 teams in the West.
They are a truly fascinating team because I could absolutely envision them back in the Western Conference Final again.
Totally.
I could also.
Miss the playoffs.
If they lose in the first round, I would be like,
yeah,
I could totally see that.
Right, and then
I don't see them missing the postseason without
something going wrong.
A massive underperformance in net
implode,
or like serious injury, especially given the way that the Pacific is this year. It's just kind of a soft division.
Yeah.
See, I could see them having a season kind of like the Islanders or like Vegas last year, if they were to miss, like in a situation like that where it gets away from you early and you can just never
get it back on
track. Back on track.
It can be really hard.
Right. And again, so seriously, Edmonton is a team for me that I don't have them as a true cup contender for me. Like half I'm being tongue in cheek, but really I just think there's too much variance in their roster for I can't say I feel confident about a team that I wouldn't be fully shocked if they missed the playoffs as a cup contender. I just can't get myself there.
So this is where I think the conversation shifts into, are there any teams in the league that are truly elite?
And I want to get into this conversation, but we are brought to you by Avaca
we should probably do this first.
Avaca is maybe your best option for getting altitude right now.
Not maybe. It definitely
It's only $15 a month for the first 3 months and only $25 a month after that. So you can go to avaca.tv/DNVR. That's EVOCA.tv/DNVR to get signed up today. It's not complicated. They send you out a box. You plug it right into your TV. You turn it on. You're watching the game. You don't have to download any apps. You don't have to do any streaming nonsense. You can just go watch it. It's super easy. Highly recommend. If you're in the Denver area, you're good. That not only Altitude, AT&T Sportsnet, national channels, if for some horrible reason you want to watch the Broncos too, go check it out today. And once you're set up, go get yourself some Breck Brew. They're everywhere now. Literally, you cannot go into a liquor store without finding some Breck Brew. So use the local beer locator online at breckbrew.com to find that. And also be sure to check out the Hootenanny coming up just a couple days from now, right?
This weekend.
Yeah. So literally tomorrow. Things kick off there. It's a big old party celebrating Breck Brew's 32nd birthday. Also kind of a cool way to kick off the start of the NHL season, which technically started today but doesn't really start until Tuesday.
This is a pretty good representation right here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I hate that they did that regular season while preseason's still going on.
Right.
Yeah.
You'd think that they would at least end the preseason games.
Right.
But nope. Here's a real game that counts right in the middle of a bunch of games that don't.
At 1 p.m.
I think the Rangers are close to an elite team, man.
No.
Go watch our division preview for how much we disagree with that.
So look, are we done with reads? because we do always jump in.
Yes, we are.
So I'm not going to get further into the biz conversation. We're not talking about it. He made a comment tonight about the Rangers. They were talking about the Rangers, I think, between the second and third intermission of the game before the Avs. And AJ, I was thinking about you because he made some points about the Rangers of like, that may have been a little bit more smoke and mirrors than people think. They really had no business getting out of that first round if it's not for Sidney Crosby going down and the Penguins being on a third-string goalie.
Yeah, Louis Domingue in net.
Right. And then...
arguably still should have lost that series.
Right. Arguably still should have lost.
They did everything they could to lose that series.
Right.
Pittsburgh was just snake bid like that.
Yeah.
And then, who did they play in the second round?
Carolina.
Yeah.
Carolina.
Goalie injuries
And
galore,
he mentioned
yeah.
the goalie injuries. They looked real, out of sorts. How many times did we mention during that series? Is anyone going to step up and like score a big goal for this team? And then
The home away thing.
Right. And then they get out to a 2-game lead against the Lightning and kind of buckle. And
They definitely ran out of gas.
Right, and how much of all of that was led by Igor Shesterkin, and he was just making the point of like, I think people saw them run to the Eastern Conference Finals and are kind of assuming, hey, maybe they're this juggernaut, blah, blah, blah. But when you take one step back and look at their full season body of work, it's like, wow, they were inches away from imploding multiple times.
Well, and
Igor
they were
Shesterkin doesn't have a top 25 all-time goalie season.
more like top 10.
I wanted to be as like
It's really a top 10.
I didn't want to go there and
I'm
people be like, "Are you kidding?" Yeah,
I am genuinely being generous by dropping it to 10.
10, yeah.
It was that kind of historic season, beginning to end, counting postseason, everything else that happened, because that was a bad 5v5 hockey team.
They were like really bad.
And what did the Rangers do over the summer that convinced anybody that they got better? Like, Igor Shesterkin is great, but it is unfair to ask him to do that again.
Yep.
And because, I mean, then you're just like, okay, if you go and do it again, then you're starting to put together a resume where you're like,
Right.
are you just the best goalie of all time?
Right.
And obviously, like 2 years in, that's stupid, but it was that kind of a season.
Behind a team like that.
Yeah, so it's like, look, Shesterkin is very likely going to drop some level and still probably be a top 5 goaltender, but he will likely drop some level.
Right.
How do they handle that?
Well, and then they lost
How do they
Andrew
handle
Kopp from the playoffs.
They lose Andrew Kopp. They actually lose a couple of guys in free agency. And they trade away a guy like Niels Lundqvist, who they just couldn't get a job for.
Right.
And it's just...
And is Chris Kreider going to score 25 power play goals again en route to 50?
Right. Chris Kreider scoring 50. Like, there were so many things for the Rangers last year that just went their way.
Yeah.
And then you consider, for me, this is a really, really big factor and why I'm down on them. It's an external factor of the East is much better. It is much more competitive from the bottom up, where it isn't like, because last year you could easily make the argument there were 7 pretty good teams, maybe 6 pretty good teams, and then there was Washington and the Rangers. And the Rangers really were driven by percentages in a major, major way.
Unsustainable levels.
Well, and you go and you watch them in that playoff series, and they get outplayed almost every game through 3 rounds.
Yep.
And it's just your goalie just doing the work here. And their power play being just good enough to get them just enough offense to get across the finish line. And you could get by. Look, sometimes runs like that happen. We saw it with the Yarrow Halak Montreal Canadiens back in the day. Sometimes those things do happen. Were they repeatable?
Right. Well,
Did Yarrow Halak ever do that in the postseason again?
And they usually end the way that it did for the Rangers, where it's a hard fizzle out.
Completely steam out.
Yep.
Yeah, where you at some point you're going to run out of gas. They ran out of gas.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, to answer your question about are there elite teams, again, for me, I do still think it's.
That was awesome.
Did you get that? Was that from upstairs?
No.
Oh, do we have them upstairs now?
Yeah. We're getting some after this
Later.
show, for
Yeah.
sure.
See ya. No, but I will put Colorado and Tampa in that range.
I don't think you can put Tampa there
I put Tampa there
man.
under the same guys that I will continue to. I'm with you guys. But again, until someone knocks them off out east, I'm not going to pick against them.
I want to get to Tampa, but I want to get to the rest of that division first.
Okay.
Because
are we done with the West?
We'll get to dark horses in a bit.
I think there are 3 teams that I take really seriously, and then
And that's fair.
There's the only team that makes me uncomfortable because
You're probably going to say the same thing that I would.
I just have no idea. It's Minnesota.
Oh, I was going to say Vegas.
No, Vegas I think is going to get undone by Vegas. Vegas problems.
Yeah.
The goaltending is the one thing, and I'm sorry for this pun, but like they're just such a roll of the dice all over, all over top to bottom. They are another team where they have good enough players that if they were really good, I wouldn't be fully surprised. If they're in the Connor Bedard sweepstakes at the end of the season, I equally would not be surprised.
I think with Vegas, I just don't believe in their high end anymore, because I think that their salary cap mismanagement has cost them too much talent.
So much.
Where it's just like, you look at the very tip top of that roster, and you're
Eichel
like,
and Stone, I'm interested
that
in
guy's really good. That guy's really good. That guy's pretty good. That guy's like 33 or whatever, and you're like,
Yeah.
I'm just not really.
And there's just so many factors with Vegas. Like, are we going to see William Karlsson continue to trend the wrong direction?
Right.
Yeah.
How much can they get out of someone like a Zach Whitecloud, really?
Yeah, I mean, can Chandler Stevenson keep up the hero act that he's put on the last couple of years?
Yeah.
And not to mention, you gave away who was arguably your best player down the stretch after you tried to illegally trade him. Evgeny Dadonov was maybe their best offensive weapon when they were trying to just scratch and claw into the playoffs.
The one guy that they would turn to and say, hey, we really need a goal here who could actually score a goal for them was Max Pacioretty.
And he gone.
And he is also gone. So
I'm going to be really interested to see Eichel with a full year, healthy.
Definitely.
He'll be their big X factor.
I'm definitely I'm in on Vegas as a playoff team. I think they're good. I think it's a good hocky team. As an elite one, I'm not in on.
Yeah,
but
no.
Minnesota is the team that I just don't have a feel for.
The problem is Vegas' problem. They need to make it through the first 2 months of the season with Logan Thompson in that, and I'm sure Logan Thompson's great and all, but NHL's a different beast.
I mean, it's not even the first 2 months. It's all year. They need an answer all year because there's no Leonard.
At what point does Brossoit come back?
And that's not your answer.
Well, and so
he was. Laurent Brossoit was the Brossoit once. Otherwise, he's been Laurent Brossoit.
I said it on our Pacific Division preview show. Vegas needs a quiet season. They just need to play hockey this year.
Yeah.
They need to stop with all the other stuff. Pick a goalie, commit to him, ride with him.
Quietly get the third spot in the Pacific.
Right.
Yeah.
Just
no drama.
Yeah.
If they can just go have just an average season, nothing crazy happens in either direction, I think they're a playoff team. I think they're better than people think after the way that last year went. But look, if their management and their ownership group is hell-bent on making sweeping changes constantly, it'll be a repeat of last year. If you're going to try to go out...
Can they resist the urge to try and go after Patrick Kane at the deadline?
Right. Can they resist the urge to go after Patrick Kane? If you come out of the gate and the goaltending isn't great, can they resist the urge to go do something stupid to try to bring in a goalie to patch over what's happening, and it's just going to make it worse. Like, honestly, I think they need to, whether it's Thompson or
Aiden Hill.
Is he in Vegas?
Yeah,
he's their fourth string.
Brossoit. Oh my God! I think you just need to say, hey, look, it's these guys. We'll have like the internal rotation. If that's your biggest controversy, is which of these three guys is playing, I think Vegas is I think they're okay. Yeah. Assuming that conversation isn't they're giving up 5 goals a night.
Yeah, I mean, if they get Seattle's goaltending from last year, I don't think it would be a huge shock because you're just like, Logan Thompson couldn't handle the job.
Right.
None of these other guys are actually any good and can't be starters. So that's a problem. It's hard to win when you give up 4 every night.
We do got to transition to the East here. I think there's probably 3 teams that everyone has at the top, those being Carolina, Toronto, and some people Florida.
Carolina is getting to the Edmonton territory for me, man. I don't know how many more times I can get burned believing in those dudes.
Yeah, AJ has talked about this a lot. Who's the big dog there? Right?
Who's your alpha male?
Who's the guy?
Who's your alpha male? Because you thought Andrei Svechnikov, Sebastian Aho, one of those two guys would do it, and then they kept getting into big situations, and those two guys just kept being like,
are you going to do it? 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 Yeah.
do we got dog in here?
Looking for 2 G's, dog. 2 G's.
Maybe it's Brent Burns. Maybe it took 2 B's.
According to Rudo's buddy.
I don't think it's Brent Burns. Gonna be honest.
No, that's really the biggest question mark that I have with the Hurricanes, because defensively they're great. On offense, their depth is great. They're really good, and they're young. They've got everything that you would really want in a team. They've got good goalies.
When they're healthy, that's the one other thing is they have.
They're just talented. It's a really talented hockey team, top to bottom. You can't really find a really obvious hole other than they got 2 goalies that get hurt a little too often.
Right. Yeah. They they have like the 2 most injury-prone goalies in the NHL that are both really, really good when they're healthy and they're on.
And consistent. Yeah.
I mean, Antti Raanta was a guy not all that long ago. People were like, "Yo, this is he's working his way into this like upper echelon." Of
he was going to be the starter until he got hurt, and Darcy Kemper was like, "Okay, I guess I'm really good too."
So comparing that, is it genuinely sort of the same conversation with Toronto? Is there a team that have to prove it to you at this point? Because on paper they look like they should be a contender, but in practice they can't get out of the first round.
Prove it to us. They got to prove it to them.
Themselves.
Yeah, sure.
They are officially into that tier. Now I feel a little bit of sympathy for them last year, and I think we talked about this. They pulled the one team in the first round last year where it's like, wow, in a year where you really need to get out of the first round, that is brutal luck.
Yeah, well, and like you look at other failures where they're like, oh, they blow series leads, or they blow a game 7 lead, or they whatever, and you're like, Toronto. Mm-hmm. But like last year, they did blow a series lead. But it was Tampa Bay, man.
It's
like,
to a goalie
cold.
who's 19-0 in situations like that with giving up less than 1 goal a game.
It was cold-blooded, man.
It was brutal.
It took a team of true killers in Colorado to drop those dudes.
Right.
And not a bunch of wannabes like what Toronto has up in there. Mm-hmm.
And that is
still a really good hockey team.
It's a very good hockey team. Again, I think similar to Edmonton, I thought it was a weird gamble in net given the importance of this year. Kyle Dubas is in the last year of his deal as GM. You're 2 years away from Austin Matthews hitting free agency. You really need to start having some level of success. I thought it was a weird decision in net given what all rides on this season. But look, like AJ said, they have to prove it to themselves. They are into this territory now where it is a mental block. I don't care what they say. You have to get out of that first round. If you don't get out of the first round this year, I don't think there's any way Austin Matthews signs in the summer. And then you're going into next season with this, we need to show something to keep him here. This is going to be, they are going to be one of the most interesting teams to watch in terms of what they actually end up accomplishing.
I think they are the team that is the single most dependent on seeding.
Yes.
Finish first.
Yep.
They need to win the division more than anybody else so that they can get like the Caps or somebody that they could maybe feel a little more comfortable going up against, and not this Tampa Bay like nonsense that they got this last year.
Because I will say
their division has not done them any favors. No. 1 through 3 with Tampa Bay and
strong as hell.
Yeah, with Tampa Bay, Boston, and Toronto over the last 5 years. Cold-blooded.
Yeah.
That is cold-blooded.
Yeah.
Like that is a hard path. And we've been like we meme on Toronto for it, but like, good for Boston for being able to get through that.
Right.
Really speaks to how good that core has been, how good those teams have been. But this Maple Leafs team, I think, will benefit the most from, I think, everybody else around them dropped a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then everybody except Carolina, and Carolina's like they're Carolina. You know what they are?
Yeah.
And everybody's just waiting to see if they can take the big step in the postseason.
For me, they're a little bit different than Edmonton. Not far off from like how many more times are you going to burn everyone? They're a little bit different because Edmonton has just gone through a couple stretches, even in the last 7 years, where they've missed the postseason, or the wheels have kind of come off. Toronto, what's mind-blowing about them is for the last 5 years, they're right at the top, right at the top of the league, the top of the division.
They've been like one of the most consistently good regular season teams over the Austin Matthews era.
Yeah. All 5 of those years, final game elimination.
Yep.
Game 7s and then the Game 5 elimination in the weird bubble.
Right.
But
yeah, it's
they've been this close for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they do. You are starting to wonder a little bit how much is the mental side weighing on them, because you see it in the body language in those Game 7s. You know they're going to lose before the puck's even dropped. You can just see it on their faces. It's if we fall behind, we're screwed. It was Game 6 against Tampa this last year for the Leafs. They had a 1-goal lead, and they went to a 5-on-3, and you saw it. They panned the bench, and you saw it on their faces.
Tight.
You saw it in their eyes.
Tight.
It was,
here we go.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Tampa scores to tie the game. And it's just heads down, slumped shoulders. It's like, this series is done.
That Kucherov goal, everybody. I think when Kucherov scored that goal, everybody was like, "That was it.
Yep,
that was your chance."
Don't
man.
even play Game 7. Just move the Lightning on.
Yeah.
Like
you don't want to play him. You don't want him to play Game 7 because you know how it's going to end. But it's just going to create another PTSD moment for a lot of fans out there.
Right.
And this time it had to be a Nick Paul 2-goal game that did him in.
Yeah.
They made Nick Paul a lot of money.
Yeah,
that postseason run in general, dude. That goofy-ass bounce and that goal that he scored in Game 1 against
Was he an 8-year deal?
No.
Okay.
It's like 6.
It was way longer than I thought.
Yeah, it was weirdly long.
It was long, and the AAV was low, and so it was like, okay. I get this. This is the Kelly Youngkirk thing.
But, it's Toronto. They really are. They're going to be so interesting because I don't even think they need to win the cup this year. Like, their core is still so young. It would really help. Their core is still so young, but I really do. Look, there's the obvious Arizona tie with Austin Matthews. They're going to have money.
Yeah.
The cap's going to be going up. You just won't convince me that that's not, at bare minimum, a threat. And if you can't show Austin Matthews anything this year, he's already like a celebrated hero in Arizona.
Yeah.
I don't remember who it was the other day was trying to make the argument like, oh, no, he wants to be the guy in the spotlight. You don't think that his face would be on every billboard in downtown Arizona?
Yeah, is there any more of a spotlight than going to Arizona and making them relevant?
Right. Making them relevant in the NHL.
I meant, like, lines up with them getting the new arena.
Just lines up with them getting the new arena.
Well, like the timing of it, because the cap is going to go up. The Coyotes should start to have their ascent right about that time.
Yep.
Like, all these things line up where you're like, these pieces all fit together pretty nicely.
Right, to the point where at bare minimum, it'll be very enticing. They're going to throw big money.
My favorite part of it is the hypocrisy of Toronto fans.
Yeah.
Being angry about this, that people are like, he's not going to Arizona. He would never leave Toronto for Arizona. How dare, just because he's from there doesn't mean he's going to go there.
Yet
and you're like, dudes don't go back to Toronto constantly.
Right. Like every single GTA to free agent that hits the market, they feel entitled to.
Right. He wants to come back home and play for the Leafs. And I just think that if you're, again, we heard it from Connor McDavid a couple of years ago. So what did he say? Like, we have 5 years, we want to see that we're on the right track. While Austin Matthews hasn't outright said that, he's thinking that same thing. Look, I have a pretty clear window here for us to get this on track. And if not, like, his parents live in Tempe. Again,
it really is there, like one of those things. There has been way too much smoke behind the scenes.
Right.
Like, even somebody like me has heard things that Austin Matthews doesn't love playing for that organization.
Is there a little beef there, would you say?
No, I just
yes.
I was trying to dance around it a little bit more.
Well, go to Hassel Cattle Company to get your beef. Don't worry about behind the scenes.
That was great. That was such a good transition. I didn't even know what you were doing. I thought you were just legitimately
It was
asking
obvious that it just went poof.
Yep.
I tried to rein us back in.
Yeah. Hassel, you can get 20% off with them right now with code DNVR20. They have some of the best meat out there. Their Wagyu beef, just absolutely delicious. The burger's unbelievable. The sausage is amazing. We have those at the DNVR tailgates for Broncos games.
I need to interject on the burger.
Okay.
Because it's something that you used to talk about it a lot before I had tried it. And when I tried it, I was like, wow, this is as good as he said. And then I started telling people about it. And I had one night where my mom, my dad, and both sisters came down. And all 4 of them had it. And again, I think my dad was even like, Jess, it's a burger. Like, relax. And halfway through, they all were like, this is so good. This is crazy. It genuinely does make a difference. I was very skeptical of it. I was like, it's a burger. It's a ground beef burger.
Z did the same thing when she was here.
I'm
and
sure
she
it's
tried
good,
it and was like, yep, that was delicious.
You don't understand the phrase like melt in your mouth for like red meat until you have it, and it's like, that is just that much better. So you can get the patties on the Hassel Cattle website. I've got a couple at home right now in my freezer. They are that good. Highly recommend.
Go to hasslecattlecompany.com to order. Again, DNVR 20 to get 20% off your order when you do. And then, when you're trying to live that healthy lifestyle, Athletic Greens got you covered. Just one scoop in your water every morning. 75 different vitamins and minerals in it, a bunch of probiotics. Gets your immune system boosted up and helps with just your daily routine. A ton of athletes use it every single day, part of their workout routine, stuff like that. So go to athleticgreens.com/avalanche today. When you order, you also get a year's supply of vitamin D shipped with it. Take control of your health. Get yourself Athletic Greens.
See, I didn't have my AG1 this morning, and my back's a little stiff.
That's why you're late.
I wasn't late. I was less on time than everyone else. But yeah, no, that probably was it.
Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. In the East, still do need to talk about the Florida teams. The Florida Panthers, in a weird spot, they did the thing that Toronto couldn't do. They got through the first round and then were soundly defeated by Tampa Bay.
Barely,
by their big brother.
Yeah.
Barely got through that first round.
They did get through it, though. And kind of a weird team in flux this year. They got Matthew Tkachuk, but traded Huberdeau and Weeger.
It is weird that the President's Trophy winning team is the team that I'm just like, can I sell all my stock in it? All of it?
So
just get them out of here. I'm not buying shit on these guys anymore.
What ended up being correctly pointed out last year, they just felt kind of gross the whole time, right? Like, I just never really...
Yeah, when you have to win, like, something like 12 games with third period comebacks.
Right, yeah.
When you trail in like half the games that you play in, just in general during the season, and when you get down multiple goals on a regular basis, and your team just gets comfortable living like that, like it's one thing to be said for, hey, they're a team that's comfortable coming back, in games and they don't get down on themselves. But it's also a team that's constantly getting down in games. And as the teams get better, you can't keep pulling that same bullshit.
Right.
You just can't.
Well, it goes back to the Edmonton thing, right? Like, when you get to a certain point, you can't just say, hey, we're going to score 7 tonight. It's the same thing for Florida. You get to a certain point. They
sure could have used their power play showing up in the playoffs.
They could have.
Florida?
Yeah.
But I look at that team, and for the last handful of years, it's been their forward core is great. And now you look at their defense, and their top pairing is Aaron Ekblad, and is Brandon Montour really going to be your top pairing D next to Ekblad? Like, I love Montour, but come on.
It's going to be Dadko.
Oh, God. Radko Gudas on a top pairing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they'll still be good.
It's a defense that you definitely have question marks about, and nobody seems to really buy stock in Sergei Bobrovsky now that he got the paycheck.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, he aight.
See, I think I picked them to win the division in our division previews. I think
you did, yeah.
And that's partially because I think, I still think Tampa is, until someone beats them, they are. But I don't think they'll win the division again. I don't know when the last time was they won the division.
Not that long ago. They just got swept in the first round by Columbus.
And I just think that like Florida and Toronto will kind of have similar, a little bit of high wire act here and there. I like Florida's goaltending way more than I like Toronto's. But again,
we didn't really even talk about Toronto much outside of their postseason failures. But
that's all that matters.
Yeah, that team's a playoff team, and they need to do it when it counts.
I think their goaltending has sneaky upside, but it's
I'm not saying I don't like it. I just like Florida's better. I like Sergei Bobrovsky and Spencer Knight.
Boomer bust is
that's more accurate.
Yeah, that's there doesn't seem like there's going to be much middle ground for the Leafs there.
Yep. But yeah,
with Bob and Knight, I think you're like
you feel pretty comfortable on any given night.
Yeah.
And look, like we haven't even mentioned Matthew Tkachuk's name. That's a big pickup for them, 100-point guy.
Be interesting stylistic change from Jonathan Huberdeau, Mr. Nice. Wants to make passes from the perimeter all the time.
Did this not feel like a Battle of Florida move? They've been the little brother for so long. They got fully bullied in that second round, and they were like, we need someone who's just going to come out there and run Nikita Kucherov over, get in people's faces, who's also a very, very good player.
Given the price of it, I think it felt more like a Vegas move. I think that it felt more like a shiny toy syndrome for me.
Interesting. All right. Okay. I don't disagree.
It felt like a team that didn't want to negotiate with Jonathan.
Well, and they knew that they had Huberdeau and Weeger coming up and that they were going to really struggle to re-sign those guys. And so they were like, hey, we can try and get value, because we had heard that they were shopping Weeger earlier in the offseason, and then when the Tkachuk thing came up, it was almost like the excuse they needed.
Yeah.
To move on to just like toss MacKenzie Weeger into a deal. But then they never did anything that would replace him. And so it was like, well, now, I mean, you've gone Huberdeau to Tkachuk is great.
But your defense is
but
just
now
bad
you're
now.
you're just without MacKenzie Weeger. That's a really big problem here. You guys didn't do anything to try and replace that guy. So what's the solution here?
So we do have the other side of Florida, as we do have to start wrapping up the show here. Tampa Bay.
Fuck Tampa Bay.
Still very good. Without a doubt, got worse over
Very
the
good,
offseason.
my ass.
Lost Andre Palat. Lost Ryan McDonough.
Bunch of bitches.
Okay, well. Sure.
See, I just, again,
Pretender-ass motherfuckers.
This seems like the first. Ooh, I was gonna talk about Florida's cap space, but they still have some work to do before opening night.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tampa, again, I'm with you guys. They definitely got worse. Definitely got worse. And I think this will be a year for someone to knock them off. But I just go back to what we talked about at the top of the show. For some reason, there have been so many guys that have gone in there recently. We're like, oh, well, there's the big downgrade. Again, we talked about it at the beginning of the playoffs last year. This fourth line, it's a way step down from what it was the year before, and it was. And fucking Nick Paul scores 2 goals in Game 7, and it's like, okay, okay.
I mean, look, they're always going to have the ultimate trump card, right? It was Florida had, 42 shots on them in that Game 5, and it just didn't matter because Andrei Vasilevsky exists.
Yep.
As long as they have him, they've got a shot.
I think the Lightning are a lot closer to the Rangers than they are to last year's Lightning.
And I say again, roster-wise, I don't disagree with you, but they are one of those teams that I think people way, way, way overrate playoff experience sometimes. But again, like they just go about their business. Nothing bothers them. Nothing rattles them. That group is just mature enough and has been through enough that
We saw a lot rattle them in that final.
Well, yeah, because that
John
was
Cooper, Mr. Cry Pants.
dude. I actually was talking about him this morning too with my buddy and how the came unraveled a bit there in the final. But again, like
I think it's going to be the undoing of that dynasty.
Do you
I think
really?
I think that was the end of it, man.
if you're
I think it's they're on the slow death to Chicago dumb.
see if you're putting my feet to the fire, I'm with you. But again, I need someone to fucking beat them. Like again, Toronto and Florida, the two teams we talked about last year.
Shit. Somebody did beat him. Punched him right in the face.
In the East.
Punched him right in the face
Right.
and took the Stanley Cup from him. In their own fucking house,
in their
man.
building, yeah.
In their own house.
Well, and it was so funny because everyone talked
those
so
motherfuckers.
much about like the Avs' path to the final, and it's like, yo, in 3 years, that was by far, by a country mile, the best team Tampa has seen in the playoffs. Maybe even 4 years. Go back to the Columbus series where they get swept. Like that was the best team that they had played. But again, I look at that Toronto series. They never seemed shaken when they were down. That Florida series, they just buried them. I think we saw them get shaken in that Avs series because that was the first time where they stepped back and they were like,
we're not the best team in this series.
I don't think a plucky attitude is going to help us here. And Andrei Vasilevsky, best goalie in the world, he's the ultimate, like you said, the ultimate trump card. Even he didn't have an answer. That Game 2
got outplayed by Darcy Kemper.
Which goal was it? It was the third or fourth goal where I remember they zoomed in on Vasilevsky and
Third or fourth goal.
He had
What a night.
He had that look on his face of like, I don't know what to do.
Well, did you?
I'm not sure how to do this.
You guys saw the thing that he said to Bednar after the series during the handshake line where he just said, you guys were too good. I couldn't do anything about it.
Did he say too much or too good?
I don't remember,
but it was one of the two.
Yeah, he was. He admitted he was like that was.
All right.
I could not stop that.
We got 2 super chats here, and then we'll do dark horses very quickly.
As long as they have Vasi, though, they're in it.
Yep.
Oh, totally.
For me.
Yeah.
$2 from Kevin, who says, "What's your honest opinion about the Flyers? If you want the full opinion, go watch
Can
our
Gritty play?
preview. The short version is bad.
Quick question. Do you guys think Torts helps that situation at all?
I think he helps them in the wrong way because he'll make them a little better, and they want to be really bad.
Interesting.
I mean, if he's trying to get blood from a stone, and I think that stone is without blood.
I like the sentiment of it. Of this is a guy who like he won't be there when they're if they ever get to be any good. But I think that's a culture move. Like they're trying to hold people accountable. I'm with you. I think he may help them in the
Wrong ways.
in the wrong way. Yeah.
And then $5 from Logan, who says, "As a diehard Broncos fan, holy crap, how much I need Avs hockey right now."
Signed City of Denver.
Yeah, straight up. I think everyone feels that at the moment.
There's so much hype around Ball Arena right now.
Yep.
Between
The healthy
the
Nuggets.
healthy
yeah.
Nuggets and defending Cup champ Avs.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what I've always wanted to see.
All right. Close your eyes, shoot your shot very quickly. Dark Horse Cup contenders.
Minnesota.
Wow, really?
Yep.
Even with that goaltending?
Yep.
All right.
Minnie, Jesse.
It's Kaprizov, man.
Yeah.
I believe in
I just
Kirill.
think there's going to be a little bit too much aggression
Yeah,
around
I
him,
agree.
but-
I just think their depth took such a hit. Hold on.
You have a
Thinking
superstar
hard.
and a really good head coach. That's a combination that I am intrigued by. And we're talking about a dark horse.
Yeah. Do you have one? Do you want to go?
I'm
while I think
going to
here?
say Nashville.
Fuck, that was a good one. Oh, man. You should put that in a stand-up routine.
Look, I don't like
Fucking
something
Nashville.
crazy would have to happen for them to get through the Avs, but I think they could pretty easily take second in the Central, get a decent matchup there, and then just hope the Avs die to injuries or something.
I mean, we're talking about Dark Horse Cup contenders?
Yep.
Dark Horse. I'm going to say Washington. I like the upgraded net. Hey, you said Minnesota. You said a superstar and a good coach.
Yeah, that's a team that's like no Tom Wilson for several months, no Nick Backstrom
But
for several months.
That's the exact type of thing where it's like, just get in the playoffs and when they're back.
I was going to say, I just...
Well,
I-
and like
I
Nick
lo-
Backstrom might
that's
just,
a different conversation.
Might just
You're
not.
right.
I know, but again, like we're talking about dark horses here. You said Minnesota based on one player and one guy who doesn't play.
Yeah. That's a really old hockey team.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Dark horse.
Do they have a top pairing at this point? Like Dmitry Orlov and John Carlson? It's almost boring now, right? Because it's been like a decade of that.
Yep.
Well, and I think Ovi's. I think he's rejuvenated. I think he's
That guy's the shit.
dude.
He's
I
gonna
love
score
I love
50
Alex.
again.
Yeah,
this year.
there's no bones about
Yeah.
the superstar part of
Yeah.
that equation.
Yeah.
He's just fine.
I like him, and just they're again they've hung around for long enough. I think they got a nice upgraded net. Catch the right playoff matchup, get some traction going. I could see it.
I would
a dark horse.
feel a lot more
Without the injuries. I'm with
that
you.
way about Pittsburgh
They were my other one.
because I like a lot of what Pittsburgh is, and I feel like we didn't really get to see where they are.
Yeah.
because of the goaltending injuries and then the Crosby nonsense.
Well, and again,
against the Rangers, where it was just like, had they gotten out of that round and they gotten to go against Carolina, how differently do we feel about Pittsburgh depending on how that's, because if they make a conference final, they beat Carolina. Are we feeling like
So I actually
Here they go,
I'm serious.
you know?
I pivoted to Washington because I felt like Pittsburgh was a boring answer, but apropos of what we said at the beginning of the show, Pittsburgh just keeps doing it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
every time you think they're going to drop off, they just keep doing it.
have they ever missed the postseason with Crosby?
I mean, outside of those the first year, maybe they have the longest postseason streak. I think it's at 18 or 19 years right now.
Jesus.
And again, they're solidly in every year. Now, their results once they get there have been a mixed bag for sure. But
I think they've lost in the first round 4 years in a row.
4 years in a row, I think. Yeah.
Well, if they make the second round, they play Washington and go on to the conference finals. That's the rules. So.
Except for that one time.
Yeah, that's
Well, to say, and the other funny thing is back-to-back cups, 4 straight first-round exits. So it's like you get one or the other, but they're another
That's what Tampa
team.
Bay is going to be in store for this year.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
welcome to the other side.
Pittsburgh, I do think is a great dark horse. who's almost not even a dark horse because I just expect them to be
true.
there. Malkin, Crosby, Letang.
Yeah.
They're
That
another
forward core
team.
is good, though, man.
Yep.
Guys like Jake Gensel just
Jake
like,
Gensel, I didn't even just mention.
Dude, Jake Gensel, Brian Rust,
That's a team that
Ricard Raquel.
kind of like
Who
Tampa.
sucks.
You just, until they aren't there, you just expect them to be there.
Yeah. That's kind of my rule for Pittsburgh is until they miss the postseason, I'm picking them to make the postseason.
They still have Crosby and Malkin? All right, they're making it.
Right.
My one thing, Adam brings up Boston and Monty, and
I'm not a believer.
the thing with Boston, who's their goaltender? Because Swayman and Olmark are both like solid.
Yep.
But is this you're just gonna keep living like this?
Right.
And then the injuries and the adjustment. David Krejci coming back. They're pretty old. No Brad Marchand, no Charlie McAvoy until
They're really old.
Well, and I was just saying, age-wise, they're from that grouping of Pittsburgh and Washington. And while they have really good elite players, Bergeron, Marchand, but they don't have Crosby. They don't have Ovi. They don't have the...
And you've seen Bergeron, the fall-off has begun.
For sure. Yep. Still a very elite player, defender, defensive forward.
Unbelievably good defensively.
Yep. But they just... The ultra high end isn't as ultra high end as it is with a couple of those other teams that are in that same kind of age bracket.
And the one guy that you would maybe make that argument for is Charlie McAvoy, and he's
For sure.
and he's out until
for months,
December or January,
Yep.
somewhere in there. And
there's again another team that if they get too far behind the 8-ball,
How do you get back?
How do you catch it?
This is where the East being, of course. The obvious thing here is this sets up for Toronto's nightmare.
oh god,
in the first round.
Toronto gets the first seed.
oh
and
my gosh! On the last day, Boston gets in.
slides in. They finally get healthy and get the 8th seed, and it's Toronto. It's Toronto, Boston in round 1 again.
Ooh, that's maybe kind of even what I'm
Sometimes you
hoping
have
for.
to slay. You got to slay the demon at some point.
Yeah.
It's got to happen.
Yeah.
Or you don't.
I was gonna say, or you just one more
San
nightmare.
Jose.
Yep.
Vancouver.
Before we go, I just have to say this because we placed the bets on the show before the MLB season started, and we all laughed about how the race is 69. We're like, well, the Rockies won't be that bad.
Oh, my God.
And we take the over 68.5 wins for the Colorado Rockies, and they finish the season with 68.
Yeah.
Never fucking sleep on Vegas.
They
Dude,
lose.
seriously.
So they lose 11 of 12 and then win 3 in a row at the very end. And it was just like
They win 3 in a row against the Dodgers.
the most. It was the most opposite September for the Rockies that they all, because usually September they play really well. They like get everybody's hopes up. Well, it could be a pretty good team next year, and instead they completely fell apart and shit the bed.
Well, and
Completely fell apart this
like
year.
Rudo just said, I learned
Sucked.
when you have positive odds, it's for a reason. Vegas does not miss. It was the Val Nichushkin.
91 and a half
Yeah,
games,
yeah.
whatever it was.
92 and a half. And what did he score in his 92nd
Yeah,
or
it was the
93rd?
third
It was the
period.
third period of the 93rd game.
Yeah, and it was just like, cool. I'm not ever going against what Vegas says again.
To be
'cause-
fair, Vegas also had lines set up in case he did not score in that game. They had a backup at 96 and a half and then 100.
But still, come on, Vegas.
when did his next goal come? Like 3 games later? 96? No, I'm just kidding. But it is just that was the one where I was like, do you guys have time travel technology or something? Like, is there something going on at the Superbook in Vegas that the government should be aware of?
That was the ultimate like shoot your shot where it was like somebody put that line out there and then when it hit they were like, all right, what the fuck? Like, what's going on here?
On that note, we're going to get out of here. We appreciate all y'all hanging out with us. Keep it tuned to the DNVR YouTube channel. All the way leading up to the season, we have a bunch of Avalanche player line, that type of previews coming out. So the first one drops tomorrow. Keep an eye out for it. Until then, we'll talk to you later.